everyone, it's time for another live look at the astrology. My name is Katie Sweetman, and this is your look at the astrology for July 1st through 7th, 2024. I know the backgrounds continue to be different. I'm actually visiting my family's beach house. So yeah, we are out on the porch together. But if you are watching live, as always, do say hello. Let me know where you're watching from. Presently, I'm in a place called Fenwick Island, Delaware, which has a lot of, it's funny because it's Cancer season, and Cancer is about memory and nostalgia and that sense of home, even if like rationally it doesn't make sense. So I didn't grow up here, but I did spend my summers here, and there's just something about this place, not this exact place, but this, the Fenwick Island, Delaware, where my family has been coming here since the 1950s. It's where my grandmother lived until 2012. And if you ever saw the blue phone that was behind me when I was living in New Jersey before I moved a few weeks ago, that was her phone, and she used to sit next to her bed at her house in Fenwick. Now my uncle and my aunt live there. Other people have unfortunately passed on, but it sort of has that sense of home. And I think that here we are in Cancer season, and home can mean different things to different people. Of course, I hope we have our sense of residency where we live, but then there's that place that may pull at us. It's a sense of home and memory, or smell, or taste, or sense. And then I have places in the world where it feels like home, but have no rational explanation as to why. Maybe it's past life. That's how I feel every time I'm in the south of Spain. And I feel more home in Fenwick, which is funny, than I do in the town that I grew up in, which is only 20 minutes away from where my dad lives presently. So yeah, Cancer is an archetype. It's about home and family, roots, foundation. As I said earlier, it's past, it's memory, it's parents. And I completely understand that these subjects might not always be easy, because maybe we are struggling with home, maybe we are struggling with family, maybe parents need care and attention. Maybe this time brings sensitive emotions up. And I'm sort of saying all this because we are coming up to a Cancer new moon this week. And so every time we have a new moon, the calendar flips, because astrology, let's not forget, astrology is also a way of telling time. It's a calendar. And so the page flips on the calendar. And so over the next 4 weeks, which is the duration of the lunar month, we are living life through the lens and the archetype of Cancer. And we have our own experience with what Cancer means. And that's why I said all these different emotions, and maybe they are complicated, or maybe they're nice. Depends on the person. They start to come up at this time. So this is a season to slow down. One of the things that I love about Cancer, and I don't think Cancer always gets its fair due in astrology, because if you were to look at what's called the natural zodiac, so the natural zodiac has Aries as the first sign because it is the first sign. But Cancer is the 4th sign, and that sign represents the base and the foundation of the zodiac. So Cancer as a sign holds up the sky. It holds up our lives. And it reminds us that we need home. We need family, even if home is very far away from where we grew up, or family are not a blood relation, and we can create our own sense of family and our own sense of home. So we have a Cancer new moon this week. It's one of the major focal points for the astrology of this week, July 1st through 7th, 2024. The other thing is that this new moon period activates the eclipses. You're thinking, why, Katie? Didn't we have eclipses back in March and April, specifically the April 8th solar eclipse in Aries, the one that was visible at least here in the United States and parts of Mexico and Canada? That new moon eclipse, that solar eclipse, was 3 months ago, and we are now 3 months before the solar eclipse of October 2nd, 2024. So we are in the midpoint of the eclipses. And that's the thing about astrology. Apart from being a calendar, it's about time and the energy of time and how time unfolds in our lives. And I've just noticed that the midpoint of the eclipses is a very interesting time when we can see the theme of the eclipse, the new beginning or the event of the eclipse come into manifestation. Or we can see a preview of the solar eclipse to come in October. It's like, what do you mean? Like, how can we see something before it's happened? But that's the thing about eclipses and time. It really shows that things are a spiral. They are not quite as linear as we think that they are. And I've just noticed over and over again as an astrologer, somebody has the eclipse prominent, 3 months later, but it's happening now. And that's not to say that like we should, there's my dog, we should be a little bit anxious. Of course not. And I've used this personal example, and you've seen it unfold in real time. The April 8th solar eclipse was on my IC. I mean, this might be a little technical for those that don't know what the IC is or the 4 angles, but I'll quickly break it down to you. In the zodiac wheel, there are 4 major signs. These are called the cardinal signs. They align with the 4 directions. They symbolically represent the 4 directions of your life. In your own personal astrology, you will have these 4 directions. You'll see it as a line that goes up and down. Maybe sometimes it's a little bit at an angle. And you will always see a line that goes across that actually represents the horizon line. I know a little bit technical, but that IC, letter C, it's an acronym for a Latin phrase, Imum Coli, if I'm saying that correctly. It represents the bottom of the sky. It represents the roots, the foundation. It's one of the 4 angles, and it's incredibly sensitive. So whether it's a major planet crossing that part or an eclipse, it's very often you can see changes in the household. That could mean a move. Somebody moves in, somebody moves out. That could be the starting of a family, the starting of a major chapter of our life. That could be starting even of a relationship, because sometimes that person moves in. And when you have an eclipse or a major transit to that point, it's very often, again, there's a change in the household. So the eclipse that was on April 8th was at 19 degrees of Aries, my IC. The bottom of my chart, the root and foundation, is 16 Aries. So that is quite close. If we're doing some simple arithmetic, 16 from 19 is 3 degrees. I almost said 4. That's because I can't do that part of the brain and this part of the brain as I'm talking to you. But a 3-degree difference is not that far. So as an astrologer, I knew there was going to be an eclipse on my IC. And not that said, like, I have to move, there's an eclipse on my IC, but I knew that it would likely be a natural expression of that eclipse. I did want to move. I was definitely very much done where I was living, even though there was pluses, but there was a lot of minuses. It's another conversation for another time. And so I was like, all right, here's the eclipse, probably gonna move. And long story short, moved in with my dad, at least for the time being. And so that wasn't exactly, maybe that part was a little bit of a surprise. I think if I went back a couple of years and said, you're going to move back home for a little bit, I'd be like, what? But so that's where, I saw movement and change in a part of my own life that's very much about the roots, the foundation of my living situation. So the dust hasn't quite settled. I'm here in Delaware for, I guess, another 2 weeks, and then I'll be back to Maryland, and I got some travels. August is going to be very interesting. We got to figure out how to do these videos, but that's, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. So that's where you can see the eclipses that happened in your own life on April 8th, or maybe you're seeing a lot of movement around this time, and even with the sun reaching the midpoint of the eclipses this week. We've been in this energy ever since the sun went into Cancer. So that would have been June 21st. So here we are. Here I am. What's going on in your life? How are you seeing the eclipses in Aries and Libra unfold for you? Even if you're not sure, but when we go through each of the 12 zodiac signs, I'll just give you a little bit of a refresher, because the eclipses make things happen. They talk about personal events like a move, or it could be the birth of a child, it could be a marriage or the start of a relationship. It could be a professional achievement. It could be a promotion. So this is the thing, like eclipses coincide, kind of like Saturn. I think I talked about Saturn at length last week because Saturn turned retrograde on June 29th. Saturn and the eclipses, they mark the major chapters of our life. So me putting my stuff in storage and moving with my dad for a little bit, that definitely hints at a major event in my life. Who knows? Maybe it's longer, maybe it's short. We have to see. I'm just, after the last few years, maybe you feel the same. I'm like, whatever. Like anything can change. Anything is possible. So I'm just trying to be very, very flexible and just allow the time to be what it needs to be. And maybe this is the time that I need to spend time with family and to learn about family and to redefine what that means to me so that when I do make my next step, my goal is to go back to New York City, it's from a different place and energy. So that's just a personal share. So this could be a week that is bringing up themes for you. It could be a week that is directly connecting back to events from April. Maybe you are an Aries, maybe you're a Libra, heck, maybe you're a Cancer or a Capricorn, and maybe you have a lot going on in your life right now. I am neither of those things. I'm Scorpio is Sag rising, but because I have angles, again, a little bit of an intermediate point, I have angles in Aries and Libra. It's an interesting time. Further, I moved to New York City in 2004 when the eclipses were in Aries and Libra like they are now. And so it's just like, here we are going back to Maryland. So hopefully not for 20 years, but it's just a personal testament where astrology is real. I didn't have to really make a reach when it came time to move. I was like, all right, this just feels like the natural conclusion. But again, like I said, being flexible, seeing where things go. So I'm not quite in the setting that I typically am, but you get to see my dog. Hopefully you can hear me. But anyway, so we have a Cancer new moon. We have the sun coming up to a square to the eclipses, midpoint of the eclipses, which we will see start to play out a little bit more as we get into the new lunar month. And then we also have Neptune retrograde. So just a friendly reminder that all planets turn retrograde except for the sun and the moon. These retrograde periods can be anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks or 4 to 5 or even 6 months. It's normal, especially for the outer planets, Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto, to be retrograde for 6 months out of the year. So we shouldn't fear retrogrades. We shouldn't be like, oh my God, what does this mean? I can't do X, Y, and Z for the next 6 months. No. What it does mean is that when a planet changes direction, it doesn't actually change direction. It's just an illusion from our side on planet Earth. When it turns retrograde, it appears to go backwards in the sky. And when it turns retrograde, I think I even said this last week because Saturn turned retrograde, it means that we've entered a period that is about integration, reflection. The thing is, Saturn's a very different planet than Neptune. So while some of these ideas around retrogrades apply to Neptune as well, we have to remember that Neptune is something called an evolutionary planet. Up until 1781, I know we're having a little bit of history lesson. Up until 1781, the last planet that was known was the farthest planet that could be seen by the naked eye, Saturn. So all the ancients knew was that the last planet in our solar system was Saturn. Saturn represents finality, endings. It's the planet that talks about our physical and manifested reality. So anything beyond Saturn is invisible. We have our first modern planet discovered in 1781. That was Uranus. It was discovered by British astronomers. And then we had Neptune was discovered in the 1840s. Can't remember, I think it was like 1846. I'm not quite sure, but then we have Pluto that was discovered in either 1930 or 31. I always kind of get it mixed up. we are opening into a time in humanity because we are still discovering planets. There's a whole host of planets. These are called trans-Neptunians. As that sounds, they are beyond Neptune. And these are planets that maybe astrology is going to look back on and have a very different relationship with them. We've integrated the archetype. We now, it's taken 100 years almost to work with Pluto. Certainly, even the books that I was coming across in like this that were from the 60s and 70s, Pluto was still pretty new, like 30, 40 years after its discovery at that point. And even 100 years after the discovery of Uranus, so we're into the 19th century, astrologers weren't quite sure what to call it. In fact, I think they were calling it Herschel if you read some of the stuff from the 19th century. Because Uranus, before it was Uranus, it was called Herschel after the astronomer that discovered it. So these are planets that are outside the bounds of our physical reality. They work differently, and it's my feeling, maybe you feel differently, but it's my feeling that they work on an evolutionary level. So when these planets were discovered, they open up an archetype of evolution into the collective experience. 1780s, 1790s, certainly from a Western perspective, a lot of change and transformation at that time. 1840s, Neptune's a little bit different than, let's say, Uranus. Uranus and even Pluto is a little bit more overt. Neptune works very subtly. In fact, I get clients all the time that say, I don't really understand Neptune. So we have a physical reality and we have a non-physical reality. What do I mean by that? We have this side and we have another side. And maybe that's a little bit of a stretch, but when you dream and you go to sleep, where do you go? Your consciousness passes to the astral plane and you travel and you dream. And so that intermediary plane is where we start to feel that sense of subtlety. We're not quite here, we're not quite there. And Neptune dissolves the boundaries between this world and the next world. Like all planets, Neptune has highs and lows. The highest of the highs of Neptune is unconditional love and compassion. Should we be so lucky? It's a reach because we're human beings. We need to grow and evolve. Same with Uranus. Uranus is awakenings. It's trying to open up our eyes to something and get us to completely sometimes get unstuck and to break free. Sometimes we need that. Sometimes we're very stubborn and we resist it. Neptune begins to open us up to our universal self, which is bigger. Maybe it's your higher self, however you want to call it. But then there's the other side of Neptune. It's illusions. It's deceit. It's feeling like we're pulled into our emotional, spiritual, and even psychological depths. It is our abyss, and it's where we sometimes get stuck inside of ourselves, where we can feel a lot of deep and even hopeless emotions. I know you're like, that doesn't sound great, Katie. It's just two sides to the coin. Like I said, we have unconditional love and we have compassion on one side. And it's almost like saint-like behavior. And then we have this energy that really pulls us into our emotions, our psyche, maybe even our spirit and our soul, depending on what you believe in. And that's the other thing about Neptune, is that it's not always ours. It's not always like we are picking up on something. Neptune and the moon kind of work on similar levels, but they do things differently. And so Neptune, we're going to continue recording even though the streaming cut out, but I don't always have the best internet here, but anyway, so Neptune really opens us up to something beyond this world, and for some people that can create a spiritual awakening, that can create a need to work on dreams or use oracle cards, and Neptune can also give us the opportunity to really free ourselves from something that kind of keeps pulling us down and pulling us into the deepest parts of ourselves. So like I said, that's the two sides of Neptune. So this week, Neptune turns retrograde on July 2nd at 29 degrees of Pisces. I think I was, last week, I was like, wait a second, Neptune's at 29 degrees of Pisces. 29 degrees of Pisces is the last degree of Pisces. It's also the last degree of the entire zodiac. I almost said internet, the entire zodiac. If Aries, 0 Aries is the first of the zodiac, then 29 Pisces is the end. So there's something very deep in the archetype about Neptune turning retrograde at 29 Pisces, because when I connect with 29 Pisces, that's like the last breath of life that prepares us for the next life. It is also that moment, because the zodiac is a wheel, there is no end. It's also the moment before birth, before something comes into reality. It's a very interstitial, liminal space for Neptune to be. What does it mean for us? I don't know. Maybe that's, what Neptune does, is that we don't quite see it for what it is at the moment, but maybe with hindsight, we can see that something is eroding, or we can see that something is leaving us, letting it go. Maybe it's a call to surrender, kind of like me. I was just like, you know what? Like, I didn't think I'd be in Maryland, even just temporarily, but I'm going with the flow, because it just feels like there's forces that are way bigger than me at the moment. And maybe that's Neptune. Maybe Neptune is to, for you, because you know your own life, you know what's in your psyche, and maybe it's giving you an opportunity to look at something within. But like I said, Neptune doesn't work really inside the physical plane, and we can see manifestations of it, acts of compassion, acts of understanding, but these are all like, it comes from the emotional, it comes from the psyche. So maybe that's a little bit hard to necessarily grasp what Neptune is, but the very end of things, the very end of the zodiac, we're here to grow and evolve. We're not here to just sort of go meaningless through experience after experience. It is to work to transcend something. Our karma, our experience, our suffering. Now I sound very Buddhist. Whatever it is that you need to transcend, because Pisces and Neptune by extension is about opening us up to universality. Anything that you heal for yourself, you transcend for yourself, you'll give the opportunity for all of us to heal and to transcend, because Pisces really, truly, when we step out of Aquarius into Pisces, is opening us up to the collective. Pisces is redemption, and I know that word's big, and sometimes it has a little bit of a religious connotation to it, but I mean that in a kind of broader sense. There's all something that maybe we're searching for, absolution or redemption. So these are some of the themes, maybe subtly so, or maybe it's just your dreams and your intuition that are very heightened this week that we may be seeing. That, and we have the Cancer new moon. And this new moon is a juncture point, maybe even a critical juncture point for the year, because it's standing between two solar eclipses, and the eclipse, particularly the eclipse to come on October 2nd at 10 degrees of Libra. So let's quickly go through the astrology of this week. I'm gonna have to rattle it off in my head because, like I said, I'm visiting family. I don't have all my things with me, but I do know that the 2nd of July, so Tuesday, we got a lot of aspects going on. We have Neptune turning retrograde at 29 degrees. We have Venus trine Saturn, so it's a day for commitments and really following through with people. We've got Mercury going into Leo, and that's the other movement this week. Mercury does go into Leo, where it will be for the next 3 weeks. If Mercury is the voice of the planet of voice and communication and how we think and listen and learn, it is through Leo that it finds the energy of passion, creativity, inspiration, and we can all use that, even if we don't think we're creative. But to take what is inside of us and to put it into something, even if it's our words and our ideas, is a truly creative act. Mercury, when it goes into Leo, it will make an opposition to Pluto. Don't forget, Pluto is hanging out at the very beginning of Aquarius. And so conversations could be intense this week, revelatory, Or maybe we need to transform how we think and listen and learn, because the evolutionary planets are trying to also get us to open up our consciousness. Then we get later in the week and we have the Cancer new moon on July 5th. It'll be at 14 degrees of Cancer, and it will make a trine to Saturn. A trine is the energy of support. So this is actually really like this new moon, in spite of sort of the energies of the eclipses. Like I said, it could be a turning point this week, next week could be a turning point. Maybe we felt the turning point already, but whatever is happening, whatever is changing in our lives, it's very possible with the energy of Saturn that we have stability, we have support. That support might come from a mentor, somebody who's older, somebody who is sort of sits in that position of authority in our life, and maybe that's the sort of steady hand that we need at the moment. So that is your look at the astrology of this week, July 1st through 7th, 2024. And so let's look at each of the 12 zodiac signs, starting with Aries. So Aries, as you know, your planet is Mars, and it's presently in Taurus. So this continues at least into, I believe, the next week or so. The next few weeks, actually, because then it will go into Taurus, I think, on the 20th. But where you are really focusing on material matters, money, income, spending, what you value, what you like, the resources that you need. So it's a very tangible and nuts and bolts time for you. Mars may be inspiring you to make more money or to create more material stability in your life, or it may be inspiring you to spend. Keep in mind, we've got a pretty intense Mars-Uranus conjunction. This will be on July 15th. So this might be an energy that's building up over the next 2 weeks, where you feel this need that you want to break free from something. We'll talk more about that the closer that we get. But then there's Cancer. And the Cancer new moon happens to be your sign of home and family, roots and foundation. It forms the base of your astrology chart. So this is the natural time in your personal calendar to spend time with home and family, to shore up your roots, to think about the past and memories, or to really prioritize and spend time with people who matter the most. Maybe it's not actual family, maybe it's people who are really your loved ones and people who are like family. This new moon does pick up on Saturn in Pisces. This is sort of a larger comment because you are coming to the end of a great cycle, Aries. This is a time to really let go of the past, to clear things out, kind of like clearing out closets, clearing out the garage, clearing out the attic. And it's also time to really create connection, emotional connection, and even spiritual connection. But this new moon does ripple the eclipses, particularly the April 8th solar eclipse that we had in Aries. And this is a bit of a dynamic time for you, Aries, and one where relationships and new beginnings are very much highlighted. Taurus. So Venus is your planet. It's presently in Cancer, if I'm recalling correctly. And so it means that the energy of your sign is pointing towards the part of your chart that talks about voice, communication, how you think and listen and learn. Maybe it's a busy time. Maybe you've got trips to go on. Maybe you're connecting with family. Maybe you're just feeling a little bit more sensitive than usual. With the new moon in this part of your chart, it does say that the next 4 weeks could be very active. Again, trips to family, trips to loved ones. Maybe it's not traveling, maybe it's about schooling and education, maybe it's not that, maybe it's about really taking the next 4 weeks and really focusing on voice and communication. Maybe it's just busy with information and ideas, communication, you're receiving news. This energy is playing off of Saturn in your 11th, which talks about friends and community. So maybe you are taking time to spend time with friends and community, traveling to go see friends, or really reaching out and connecting and making stronger connections in your community and your neighborhood. Goodness. Oh, I should also add, Taurus, sorry, that because we are coming up to the eclipses, these eclipses are activating two signs in your chart that, depending on how you look at it, could speak to health and wellness, your physical health, your spiritual and emotional health. And maybe there is an opportunity, especially now that we're at the midpoint of the eclipses, to make some positive or lasting changes into, again, either your physical health, or your emotional health, or your spiritual health. Gemini, so Mercury is your planet, and it just left Cancer and it went into Leo. So for you, Leo, it kind of really amps up the Gemini energy. Gemini and Leo actually have like this really strong connection. I guess that's a little bit of a conversation for another time. So with your planet leaving Cancer, you leave behind a sign that maybe has felt more emotional, more sensitive, but now your planet is in a fire sign. So fire sign is about inspiration, ideas, movement, travel, exploration, passion, creativity, opening up your eyes, and maybe the next 3 weeks are really focusing on your voice, whether it's literally your voice or how you express your voice. But here's the thing, Gemini, do not be a cover art artist in your own life. And so Mercury in Leo is a reminder that there's only one you in the world. I mean, of course, there's one of all of us. So don't forget that. It might be a very busy time, very much in Gemini fashion, trips, curiosity, travel, movement, trying everything. And that's just part of this time for you. Then there's the Cancer new moon, and that Cancer new moon highlights your second sign of money and income and material stability and security. So over the next 4 weeks, maybe you are gathering resources, maybe you're spending money, maybe you are thinking more about what's truly of value and not of value. There could be a connection between money, value, and income and status and your career or the duties and responsibilities that you take in the world. So it's a little bit of an interesting time for Gemini because you have a very strong Saturn with you into the beginning of 2026, namely in your career section, which is saying it's time to really take the step up into a role. Maybe that's not literally career, but it says that every one of us needs to occupy a place in the world and really take on duties and responsibilities. It's just a part of life. Neptune's also in this space, although Neptune is taking nearly 14 years to reach the end of your career sign. It's not to say that you've had no career for the last 14 years, but I feel like Neptune in this space has been a reminder that you need to do not just what you love, but you need to do something that actually feeds your soul. And maybe there have been times over the last decade plus where it's gotten a little bit interesting, but it's always been trying to bring you back to the sort of fundamental question, like, who do you want to be? What role do you want to play in the world? Is it about the money or not? But of course, every Gemini has to answer that in their own way. So there you go. Cancer, you are having a new moon in your sign. So happy birthday. And if your birthday is on July 5th, plus or minus a few days, it is a powerful year of new beginnings in your life. So even if you're not born on the 5th, plus or minus a few days, you still get the boost of this energy of renewal that sort of brings you into your season even more. So this is naturally a time of new beginnings. If it's not your birthday and you're Cancer rising, you also get this time in your personal calendar where it's like you've turned over into a new personal year. You have your birthday, and then you have the rising sign when you have the sun cross into the sign of the rising, unless you're born at sunrise and your rising sign, your sun sign are the same. But what I'm trying to say is that if you're Cancer rising, this is like the beginning of your personal year. And so this is a time for new beginnings, turning the page, setting off on new adventures, and really taking the first steps towards greater goals that you want to achieve over the next 10, 11, and even 12 months. If it's your birthday, like happy birthday, Cancer, this is the season that really highlights what you're here to teach all of us, which is the importance of caring and connection. if you have a Cancer in your life, you know what it's like to be taken care of. You know what it's like, to have somebody whose instinct, hopefully, is to do all the little small things. They'll make you a meal, they'll tuck you in, but they're always that sense of empathy. It's very natural to the sign of Cancer. This new moon is playing off of the eclipses that we had 3 months ago in Aries, and even the lunar eclipse in Libra. Plus, it's it's a preview of the solar eclipse to come on October 2nd. So for you, Cancer, Aries is your career sign and Libra is your sign of home and family. So it is likely a very dynamic time for you. Changes in the household, changes in your living situation if they have not happened yet. Let's see where we are when the sun gets into Libra and we have that eclipse in Libra on October 2nd. Maybe this is about career right now, but I wanted to put these things on the table because it's likely a very dynamic time, Cancer. It's for you to see how is this eclipse narrative unfolding, even if it's been 3 months after the eclipse. That said, with Neptune turning retrograde, Saturn just turned retrograde, all in your 9th. And so the 9th is really bringing these bigger existential questions up. What do I believe in? What do I stand for? Like what mission and purpose am I aligning my life with? So these also might be big themes this week. Leo, so the sun is your planet, and I said this last week, but it's just a reminder that when the sun gets to Cancer, you are now at the last month of your personal calendar. So this is the month that happens before your birthday. So when the sun is in Cancer from June 21st or sometimes June 20th all the way to the 23rd of July, it is a time to let go, to come to the end of a personal chapter, to reflect, to rest. Typically, we're not supposed to have a lot of energy at this time. I don't know, maybe you feel differently, but it's to utilize this time because astrology teaches us that there's a time and there's a place for everything, and it's a necessary part of life. So don't resist the urge to reflect, to meditate, to focus on your spirituality, to ask yourself big questions. And if you need to rest, do not push yourself. And you do have the Cancer new moon in this space. So it's really putting a spotlight over the next 4 weeks on this need to take a bigger, wider view of your life and even your life on a wider spiritual lens, depending on what you believe in. But the real role, at least I feel the real role of the 12th, is to get us to see beyond this life and to look at who we are and what we are becoming. This new moon does pick up on Saturn in Leo, or not Saturn, but Saturn in Pisces. And it's just been a time since 2023 where it's been bringing up a lot of deep emotions. So maybe there's a sense of feeling stability and support during this larger period of your life of really facing some deep parts of you and looking at your attachments and the things about trust and intimacy and vulnerability, power and control. And maybe you've just reached a point with the Cancer new moon where you're just like, you know what, I'm at peace and I can just roll on into the next chapter. I can let it go. That said, you do have Neptune turning retrograde also in your 8th sign, just right behind Saturn, which did it last week. And it's been almost 14 years of doing a lot of deeper, quiet, not always obvious, inner emotional and psychological work. Just be aware. What are the things that are being reflected back to you? And what are the things that are coming up? Because it's giving you some clues to a bigger work that you are doing. I will also add that now that Mercury is in Leo, it's starting to pick up into this time where the personal planets are going into your sign. So even though you've got one foot in Cancer, which is the past and its endings, it's the preparation for the new, you do have Mercury that's kind of giving you some energy and saying, all right, I'm ready to move forward. But first, Mercury has to oppose Pluto at the beginning of this week, or it says that we have to see something for what it really is, because Pluto is trying to hold a mirror to us. Virgo, so Mercury is your planet, and Mercury has just gone into Leo. So for you, Virgo, Leo represents the end of your personal calendar. So Virgo is your first sign, or your Virgo rising, and Leo is your 12th sign. So Leo is the sign that we arrive at before we, step into your birthday season or step into the sun in Virgo. So when we reach the end of the personal zodiac, we've come to this, this energy of endings, letting go, release. Mercury going into Leo says it's time to explore, to learn about, to intuit and connect to what is beyond this world. We all have our own sense of questions, existential questions. Who am I? Where do I belong? Where am I going? Utilize this time. Mercury will be in Leo for the next 3 weeks. It will go into Virgo, I believe, later in July. There will be a retrograde in I almost said October. There will be a retrograde in August. Mercury will turn retrograde in Virgo. It will dip back into Leo. So I would take some personal notes, or at least look at the landscape of what's going on throughout July, because you may be revisiting it thematically or even quite literally when Mercury goes back into Leo in August during its retrograde. I forget when that is. There you go, Virgo. I will also add, coming off the Saturn's retrograde just a few days ago, plus now Neptune turning retrograde in Pisces. There's just something about relationships during this time for you. It could be literally relationships. It just could be how you connect and interact and socialize with people. But Neptune being Neptune, something needs to grow and evolve. And it's been 13 years since Neptune first went into Pisces. And it's to see what work have you been doing over the last decade plus in a relationship. Libra, Venus is your planet. Venus, I believe, I don't have the information handy, is still in Cancer. And for you, Libra, Cancer is your sign of career. It's your role in the world. It's the title after your name is what people see you as, even if that's a parent, even if that's a leader, or even that's how people see you, which sometimes is not always fun, because we have this sort of the vision of who people think we are out in the world versus who we truly are. But this is a time where the push for you is to take on duties and responsibilities. For some, that is in your career. You're really, there's a lot of visibility in your professional life right now. You're trying to get recognized for something. You launched a project. You're trying to get promotion, or maybe you're trying to change your jobs. And so with the Cancer new moon, on the 5th of July, you're going into a lunar month that takes you into July of the next 3-4 weeks, where there could be new beginnings in your professional life, or new beginnings in your public life, or new beginnings around maturity, growth, responsibility, and needing to get things together. To keep in mind that this new moon marks the midpoint of the eclipses. So we are 3 months after an eclipse in Aries, which was in your relationship sign. We are 3 months before a solar eclipse in Libra that will be on October 2nd. So if your birthday is on October 2nd, plus or minus a couple of days, it is quite possibly a powerful new year for you, a time of new beginnings, dynamic new beginnings. Even if your birthday is not October 2nd, plus or minus a few days, you still have that energy of an eclipse in your sign or your rising sign. And so life is likely capital L. Life, probably, I feel like I can have a list of Libra rising people in my head that I know where life is capital L. Life, they're just navigating a lot of personal events, and some of them are actually connecting on new beginnings and relationships as well. So this could be a dynamic week for you. We do have the Neptune retrograde, but Neptune is turning retrograde in something called your sixth sign, right after Saturn turned retrograde. There's just something about health and wellness, how you take care of your body, how you occupy your body, how you occupy rituals in your day-to-day life that might be coming up. Of course, every Libra and Libra rising is different. Scorpio, Mars is your planet, and Mars is still in Taurus, at least for the next 3 weeks. So this is a time in your personal calendar for you to focus on relationships, the energy of you. Mars rules you, is pulling you over to other people. Maybe it's a busy time, a social time. Maybe new people are coming into your life. And I said this last week, or probably even the week before, we can't forget that Uranus has been in Taurus since 2018 and 2019. So Mars is activating a story about relationship and connection and socialization that has been present in your life over the last 5-6 years. This area of your life has needed to grow and transform and awaken. And here's Mars, and it will be making a conjunction to Uranus on July 15th. We've got time to go, but something is trying to open up your eyes, and whatever is happening is part of a larger story. Scorpio, you are a water sign, which means that water element, emotions, feeling, movement. It's also the same as Cancer. So let's not forget that it's Cancer season. We have a Cancer new moon on July 5th, and Cancer is something called your 9th sign. So your sense that you are going into a 4-week period that's focusing on faith, truth, meaning, what do I believe in? What do we stand for? What is the mission and purpose of my life? What do I feel that I'm here to reveal to the world, reveal to people? Maybe I'm a writer, I'm getting published. Maybe I'm a teacher, I'm really sharing my ideas. Maybe I'm a preacher or something of that variety, and I'm really trying to inspire and motivate people with my experiences and what I've discovered. This is also a time of discovery, and for some Scorpios, it is about travel, namely long distance travel and even foreign travel. It really depends on what long distance is for you. At least here in the United States, it takes 3 days, 3,000 miles to go to the other side of the country. But that said, it is to look beyond borders at the moment, and that has a literal quality to it, and it has a metaphoric quality as well. This new moon is picking up on the Saturn recently retrograde in your 5th sign, which is about creativity, self-expression. Who are you? Taking yourself and taking your talent seriously. And just keep in mind, Scorpio, that you are now coming to the end of a 14-year chapter. Right now we're at 13 years of really doing a lot of personal growth and evolution and opening up to maybe a different version of who you are. It's not who you're not, but a version of who you are that you weren't able, let's say, to fully actualize 13 years ago, when Neptune first went into Pisces in 2011 and 2012. Sagittarius. So Jupiter is your planet, and as of the end of May, it's in Gemini. It is a busy, that's my dog. It is a busy time for you, Sag, and one that might feel like it's a lot of travel, a lot of movement. You have Jupiter pulling you, because you are ruled by Jupiter, all the way to the other end of the sky. So maybe you are far from home. Maybe you are using this energy to connect with people. Maybe new people are coming into your life. It's time of relationship into the next year. And then there's Saturn. Try not to cough again. Then there's Saturn, and Saturn recently turned retrograde as of a few days ago in your sign of home and family. You are in a very interesting time in your life, Sag. I know I said this last week, but where we have relationships and we have home and family very highlighted, not just this year, but for multiple years. In the case of Saturn, it's 2023 to 2026. Jupiter is in your relationship sign at least till 2025. And then next year into 2026, we have Uranus going to Gemini. So these are 2 key areas of your life. They're the 2 key areas of anybody's life. But we are having a lot of changes and a lot of emphasis in that area of your life starting last year. So home and family continue to be a major priority. Look to relationship, who is coming in and out of your life, how has relationship been really highlighted at the moment. But that said, it is Cancer season and we are having a Cancer new moon, and Cancer happens to be your 8th sign. In our personal astrology, we have 12 signs. So you're a Sag, so that's your first sign, and then you count out, and each of the other 11 signs represents a different aspect of life. When we reach the 8th sign, we have to face ourselves. It's a very emotional and psychological. It could be facing our fears. I know you don't want to hear this, but I got to be real about the 8th because it is a space where we truly grow. And it's not to suffer, of course not, but it's where we are tested by life sometimes, or we book a therapy appointment. Maybe we are talking to a trusted friend. It is bringing up themes around trust, vulnerability, intimacy, power, control, and even sexuality. Cancer being Cancer, it could be something about family, something from the past, something that needs to be released, faced, or healed. Sometimes that Cancer energy in the 8th can be the family skeletons in the closet. That's not going to be, of course, the case with every last Sag or Sagittarius rising. The energy of the new moon is picking up on Saturn in the 4th, so there is a strong connection about family and home and sort of the bonds and the connections and even the legacies that we have. Maybe it's about inheritance, maybe it's about ancestors, maybe it's about both. But it's for you to see what this new moon means to you. Keep in mind, with Neptune turning retrograde, you are coming to the end of a 14-year chapter of doing a lot of deep work on home and family since 2011 and 2012. Capricorn, Saturn is your planet. You hear me say this every week. And so Saturn is still in your 3rd sign of voice and communication and education. So it's to know that you are halfway through a personal chapter in your life where it's very much focused on learning. Whether that's literal, we're taking lots of classes, you're reading books, you're trying everything. That's about curiosity. For some, it's about voice, speaking more, sharing what you have to say. Maybe Capricorn being Capricorn, you're teaching. With Pisces continuing to be a major influence in your life, it's a very different energy than the past 6 years, 7 years. It's more intuitive, it's more emotional, it's more feeling, it's more trying to get in touch with a part of yourself that maybe you haven't always been in touch with. Keep in mind that Neptune, as of tomorrow, is turning retrograde in this space as well. Saturn has been in this space for a little over a year. Neptune's been in this space for 13 years. So you are starting to come to an end of a cycle. This will start to come to an end next year into 2026, where you needed to do a lot of deep work on voice, how you think, how you listen, how you learn, and even the choices that you make. Neptune talks about healing and transcending, so just listen and feel to how that is relevant in your own life. This week, we do have a Cancer new moon, and this is a big one for you, Capricorn, because Cancer is your sign of relationship. So this is the natural time in your personal calendar where it's the focus on other people, the needs of other people, starting a relationship, focusing on an existing relationship, and for some, maybe even coming to an end of a relationship and needing to make a serious decision, especially with that Saturn into 3rd. Like, what are we doing? Where are we going? Maybe it's about bringing somebody new into your life. Maybe it's about having serious conversations and conversations that help to heal something. That said, we are in the middle of the midpoint of the eclipses, so it is a dynamic time in Capricorn's life, even though the eclipses are not in Capricorn. They are in Aries and Libra, and these are your signs of home and family, Aries and Libra, which is career. So these eclipses that we had back in March and April, namely the April 8th solar eclipse that was in your sign of home and family, Aries, that planted a seed. So maybe you needed to get 3 months after to see the changes in the household, or the focus on family in your life. This week, next week, and maybe even the week after could also preview the solar eclipse to come on October 2nd, which is your sign of career and the changes that have been unfolding or the changes that need to make. So just take notes and pay attention, and just know, Capricorn, that it is a dynamic time in your life. Aquarius, Saturn is your planet. It continues to be in your second sign of money and income, where it will be pretty much until the beginning of 2026. So you're just in the middle of this chapter that's very much about your material life. Hopefully at this point you can see what this means to you. Whether you are purchasing more things, you're thrifting more things, you're gathering up. That's the thing. We are human beings, and we all need resources. We need shelter. We need food. We need some sort of sense of currency, whatever that is, whether it's monetary or just goods and services, to support our life, because we're physical beings. So this is, like I said, you're halfway through this period where it's really looking at the material structures of your life, whether you are trying to earn more, or you are spending more, or you're investing more, or buying property. But that said, Pisces being Pisces, it's not about just spending money. It's about being really intuitive or conscientious about where your money is going towards, and towards what, if it's truly in alignment with your spiritual needs and your spiritual wants and your spiritual desires. So it's kind of an interesting, sounds like a conflict, material and spiritual, but they can support one another. That said, Cancer new moon for you, Aquarius. Cancer is your sign. Goodness gracious, I have to do quick math. Is your sixth sign of, it's like the systems and operations of your life. It's a time to get organized. It's a time to really look at the day-to-day structures about how everything runs and maybe make changes. And for some Aquariuses, it is focusing on physical health and wellness, those checkups, those doctor's appointments, going for a walk, having a smoothie, taking your vitamins. And so the new moon gives you this opportunity to make a change in this part of your life, or to just do the things and the checkups, all the things that you need to do at this time. This new moon does play off of you and Saturn. It gives you a trine. It says, how are you investing in your health and wellness? How are you investing in your day-to-day life? Do you need to rearrange things? Do you need to refocus priorities? But this new moon, it is a turning point, but maybe one that will ultimately give you more stability and security. I will also add, with Neptune turning retrograde, it is highlighting again money and income, because Neptune's in the same sign as Saturn, which is your planet, and maybe a lot of bigger existential questions are coming up around money, assets, and property, and just use this time to reflect on what is truly important to you. Finally, Aquarius. So finally Pisces. Sorry, it's what happens when you're traveling. You're not quite in your place, but Pisces. So Jupiter is your planet. So Jupiter is now in Gemini as of the end of May. So the next year, I guess at this point, 11 months, it really is about home and family. That means different things to different people. But we are, at the end of the day, we're humans. We need a sense of home and family and connection, even if that's not our blood relatives. We need a home, even if sometimes that area of our life is not so stable. So how do we create stability? How do we focus on this part of our life? How do we invest in time with the people that really matter to us a lot? Typically, Jupiter energy wants to grow an area of our life. It's not to necessarily grow it and make it bigger, but it's to open up our eyes to it. So maybe you are opening up your eyes to the importance of home and family and roots and foundation, whether you are creating your own sense of family or reconnecting with family members. There's that, and then there's the Cancer new moon. So Pisces, you're a water sign, and Cancer too is a water sign. Water is the element, it's the last element in the series of elements. It talks about feelings, emotional connection, emotional bonds, memories. And water is the element that transports us, whether it allows a movement, emotional movement to transport us to the past in terms of Cancer, memory, to transport our spirit from this life to the next, or in the case of Scorpio, to really help us to go within and to see the psychological dynamic of life. That said, Cancer for you is your sign, your fifth sign. This is a time in a new moon over the next 4 weeks to really get back to what gives you joy, lights you up, gives you passion. Maybe just to, have a vacation or a holiday, maybe to rest. And this is the thing, and it sounds a little bit superficial, but this is why I love astrology. It tells us that everything is not superficial. It all has its place and time. So to use the next 4 weeks to focus on yourself, this is the time for you to focus on yourself. It is the time for you to get back to the things that light you up and give you joy and give you passion. You have had Saturn in your sign for the last year plus. That's a little bit of a heavier influence. Saturn can really put the weight of time and responsibilities on you, and maybe you just need to kind of let your hair down, sort of get some R&R. For some, it is about children and really either having children or spending more time around children, and the role that you can play either with children as a parent or as a mentor or as a teacher. It really is to see how this is relevant to you. But that said, enjoy, give life. If it has been a heavy time, how do you really give yourself permission to devote time to the things that are actually going to nourish you, light you up, and help you to replenish your cup? That said, there are a lot of emotions with this new moon, namely Neptune turning retrograde in Pisces. Hey, you're a Pisces or Pisces rising, so your sensitivities may be running high. Just take that extra step as you take care of yourself to also make sure that you are well anchored and grounded. So that is your look at the astrology of the week of July 1st through 7th, 2024. I'm sorry for those that were watching live and it cut out. The internet is way better than it used to be, but maybe there was a little bit of something that cut out. So don't worry, this is still recorded, and I appreciate you all. Thank you all for watching each week. I'm going to be doing this from this location or another location in the house, I guess for the next 2 weeks at this time. Enjoy the week. You can always book a consultation with me. You can always sign up for my newsletter, and I will see you all next week, July 8th. So until then, take care. Bye-bye.